Get ready to dream. Close your eyes, the story is about to begin. Elara was immersed in the tranquil waters of the sunken temple of Atlantis, where filtered light danced gently on the coral walls, creating a mesmerizing spectacle. The salty aroma of the sea mingled with the incense burning on a richly decorated altar, while the priestess performed her ancestral ritual. With her eyes closed and hands delicately intertwined, she chanted sacred words, invoking the protection of the ocean gods. The blue liquid around her seemed to vibrate with her energy, as if each note of her voice resonated through the depths. Suddenly, a wave of power swept through the aquatic space, causing Elara to open her eyes. An ancient, deep, and resonant voice echoed through the crystal-clear waters, like a siren's song calling for her. Elara! Elara! The priestess felt a shiver run down her spine, and her heart began to beat faster. "Who is there?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I am the essence of the ocean, guardian of Atlantis." "You must heed my call," replied the voice, imbued with a wisdom that seemed to span the centuries. Elara felt a mix of fear and fascination. The voice spoke of something she could not fully comprehend, yet it resonated within her soul. "What do you desire of me?" she inquired, her curiosity overcoming her fear. The answer came like a whisper in the currents of the water. "Secrets must be unveiled. A great evil approaches, and only you can restore harmony between humans and sea creatures." The words echoed in her mind, and Elara realized she could not ignore this call. However, confusion settled in her heart. How could she, a simple priestess, be the key to something so grand? The next morning, wearing a blue cloak that reflected the colors of the ocean, Elara decided to seek the guidance of the elders of Atlantis. Arriving at the Hall of Sages, where light filtered through crystal windows, she found the elders gathered in a circle, discussing the city's matters. The atmosphere was charged with wisdom but also with skepticism. "Elders, I heard a voice from the deep sea, a call I cannot ignore," Elara began, her voice firm yet hesitant. One of the elders, a man with a long beard and white hair, looked at her with a concerned expression. "Elara, the voice of the sea can be deceptive. Many have lost themselves in its promises. What do you believe this voice wants from you?" He shook his head, as if trying to dismiss the idea. "We must stay focused on the challenges of the present, not on fantasies of the past." The priestess felt frustration grow within her. But what if it is true? What happens if we do not act? The harmony we have always known may be threatened. "I feel it." The room fell silent, and the elders' gazes reflected doubt and skepticism, while the pressure in Elara's chest increased. She had hoped for support, but instead found resistance. That night, the ancestral voice returned, stronger and more persuasive, like a wave crashing against the rocks. "Elara, you must follow my call. The fate of Atlantis is in your hands." The priestess felt she could no longer ignore what was happening. With a determined heart, she murmured to herself, "I cannot stand still. I need to explore the depths." The next morning, Elara prepared to dive into the deep waters, a mix of determination and anxiety pulsing within her. "I know I need to do this," she said aloud, as if the affirmation could give her courage. With one last look at the blue horizon, the priestess plunged, leaving behind the doubts and the elders who did not understand her. She was ready to discover the secrets the sea had to offer, even if it meant facing the unknown. Elara dove into the ocean's depths, her heart racing with adrenaline and curiosity. The waters around her were a deep blue mantle, and the air bubbles escaping her lips danced toward the surface. The ancestral voice she had heard during the ritual still echoed in her mind, and she felt that each movement brought her closer to an unknown destiny. When she finally found the magical portal, a soft glow emanated from a crack in the rock. It was as if the sea itself was inviting her in. Elara hesitated for a moment, but determination propelled her forward. With a decisive gesture, she passed through the portal and was immediately enveloped by a radiant light. On the other side, the underwater cave took her breath away. The walls were adorned with ancient inscriptions and symbols that seemed to pulsate with life of their own. Artifacts from a glorious past were scattered everywhere, gleaming with the shine of shells and precious stones. Elara swam deeper, increasingly fascinated. This is part of my story," she murmured to herself, touching a delicate ivory mask that seemed to have belonged to a priestess. As she explored, her eyes were drawn to a majestic mural that covered an entire wall of the cave. The mural depicted the rise and fall of Atlantis, and Alara felt a shiver run down her spine as she noticed the figure of a woman with long, wavy hair identical to hers. It was her grandmother, who had been a respected priestess. She has always been here, among these waters, Alara thought, as a feeling of connection enveloped her. You are the chosen one, Alara, said a deep, gentle voice echoing through the cave. Alara turned quickly, and to her surprise, a majestic creature emerged from the darkness, the Lassan, the guardian of the ocean's secrets. His scales shimmered like moonlight, and his eyes were deep as the mysteries of the sea. I have waited for you, he continued, his voice resonating like an ancestral chant. The Lassan? You are real? Alara asked, disbelief evident in her voice. I am real, and I am here to guide you, he replied, moving gracefully in the water. You are the ancient lineage, and the voice that called you is the same that preserves the memory of Atlantis. You have an important mission. Alara felt her heart race at the revelation. Mission? What must I do? Anxiety mixed with excitement. The cataclysm that nearly destroyed our city was not merely an accident. A dark force approaches again, and only you possess the power to face it. But first, you must understand your heritage and the secrets these artifacts hold, explained the Lassan, gesturing to the objects around them. Artifacts? You mean they hold power? That I can use them? Alara was intrigued. Yes, each item here is a part of your story. They contain the wisdom of our ancestors and the strength of the ocean. But be careful, Alara. Those who seek power only for profit will not hesitate to use any means to obtain it, the Lassan warned, his tone growing more serious. Alara nodded, aware of the responsibility now resting on her shoulders. I will do whatever it takes to protect Atlantis and those I love. But how can I begin? What should I do? First, let's uncover the secrets of this mural. It holds the key to the truth you seek, the Lassan said, moving slowly toward the mural, while Alara followed him, her heart pounding with the adrenaline of discovery. Each symbol and image on the mural revealed not only the history of her city but also the intimate connection Alara had with the ocean and her ancestry. The emotion swelled within her, and determination solidified as the first fragments of truth began to unite in her mind. I cannot let the past repeat itself, she whispered, a new flame of resolve burning inside her. Alara floated in the underwater cave, surrounded by the soft glow of bioluminescence illuminating the damp walls. The Lassan, imposing and serene, hovered beside her, his eyes reflecting the light of a deep blue. This cave holds the secrets of our civilization, Alara. Here, the stories of Atlantis are written in the rocks, he said, his voice echoing softly like the murmur of the waves. With a careful gesture, the Lassan pointed to a majestic mural stretching along the cave wall. The images depicted heroes and heroines of ancient Atlantis, their faces marked by expressions of courage and determination. Do you see this figure? The Lassan asked, moving closer. It's your grandmother, a priestess who used her power to protect our city. She made a great sacrifice to prevent a cataclysm that almost destroyed everything. Alara approached, her heart racing. The image of her grandmother, surrounded by sea creatures, seemed alive. What happened? How did she save Atlantis? She asked, curiosity bubbling within her. The legend says that an ancient spirit, a king who became vengeful, threatened our existence. He resented what was lost and demanded an offering. Your grandmother, in an act of bravery, offered her own essence in exchange for peace, the Lassan replied, his voice laden with reverence. But the cost was high. The ritual that saved Atlantis trapped her in a limbo between worlds. Alara's eyes filled with tears. So, this dark force I feel, is it the spirit of the king? Yes, the Lassan confirmed, his expression grave. It feeds on anger and resentment. And now, it seems to be awakening again, drawn by the ambition of the treasure hunters who invaded this cave. With a loud crash, the cave entrance was illuminated by lit torches, and shadows moved quickly, revealing the presence of armed men and women. Let's grab everything we can and get out, shouted one of the invaders, his greedy gaze fixed on the gleaming artifacts. "This sunken city belongs to us now." Talassen looked at Alara, his expression resolute. "We must act before they destroy everything. What's at stake is more than riches, it's the very essence of Atlantis. How can we stop them?" "They are armed and ready for anything," Alara replied, adrenaline surging through her veins. "We need to use what we have, the water and the resources around us." "Let's create a distraction," suggested Talassen, and Alara nodded, determined. With a movement of her hands, Alara began to invoke the power of the ocean. The waters around the invaders started to stir, forming small waves that seemed to dance. "Now! Let's go!" Talassen ordered, and Alara dove, using the force of the current to push the hunters back. The invaders, caught by surprise, stumbled and fell, trying to get back up. "What's happening?" one of them shouted, as the waves seemed to come alive, forming barriers around the cave. "Quick, Talassen!" Alara exclaimed, as sea creatures began to approach, responding to her call. "They are organizing." "Then let's go. Draw them away from the artifacts." Talassen shouted, and together, they dashed toward the cave entrance, where the hunters were trying to regroup. The battle was intense, but Alara and Talassen managed to divert the attention of the invaders. With each movement Alara made, she felt the force of the ocean pulsing through her, every drop of water responding to her call. With one last effort, she conjured a whirlpool that grabbed the hunters and dragged them away from the cave. "We did it!" Alara shouted, exhausted but relieved. However, when they looked back, they realized not all the hunters had been driven away. "We need to find out who is behind this," Talassen warned, his voice tense. "They are not acting alone. There is a dark force controlling these men, and we must be prepared for what is to come." Alara nodded, determination burning in her chest. "We cannot let the story of my grandmother and the secrets of Atlantis be lost again. We must find this force before it's too late." As they moved away from the cave, the shadow of the vengeful spirit loomed over them, a silent threat promising an even greater conflict ahead. Alara surfaced in the ocean, her heart pounding with the adrenaline of discovery and urgency. The darkness of the cave was still fresh in her mind, filled with artifacts that spoke of a glorious past and a heritage she had barely begun to understand. Now, however, the reality of her mission became palpable. With the sight of the horizon illuminated by the midday sun, she felt a new purpose ignite within her. Gathering allies was crucial. Alara knew that the approaching dark force could not be faced alone. With that in mind, she headed to the central square of Atlantis, a vibrant and bustling place where the voices of the citizens mingled with the sound of waves crashing against the temple columns. People were busy with their routines, but upon seeing Alara, some stopped to watch her, noticing the determination in her gaze. "We need help," she announced, her voice firm and clear. "A threat is approaching, and we need to unite to protect our city." Jackson, a young warrior who had always admired Alara, was the first to step forward. His eyes shone with a mix of courage and respect. "I will fight by your side, Alara. You know you can count on me." "Thank you, Jackson," Alara replied, a grateful smile forming on her lips. "But we need more allies. We need everyone who cares about the future of Atlantis." The square soon filled with murmurs, and other citizens began to approach. There was the blacksmith, who always kept his forge hot and his weapons sharp, the healer, whose wisdom and knowledge of herbs were invaluable, and even a few young people who dreamed of becoming warriors. They were all willing to listen to Alara, and the atmosphere was one of collective determination. "Let's meet tonight, at the temple," Alara suggested, looking at each of them. "There, we can plan how to protect our home and recover the artifacts that are part of our history." The allies agreed, and the conversation began to flow with ideas and strategies. The faces that were once strangers were now those of comrades, all determined to face the unknown. Alara felt a wave of hope forming in her heart. The town was united, and this unity was a powerful force. That night, under the soft light of the lanterns illuminating the temple, Alara was surrounded by her new allies. The space was filled with vibrant energy, and everyone present was eager to hear what she had to say. The aroma of burning incense mingled with the scent of the sea, creating a sacred atmosphere. Thank you all for being here, Alara began, her voice softly echoing against the coral walls of the temple. We are about to face a great threat. The treasure hunters who invaded the cave are not just greedy. They have allies in the shadows, and we need to be prepared. Murmurs intensified, and Jackson raised his hand. What do we need to do to prepare? How can we recover the artifacts before they use them against us? We need a plan, Alara replied, her mind already working through the possibilities. The first thing we must do is find out exactly who these hunters are and how they connect to the dark force. We need to explore the ruins near the cave and perhaps gather information about their next steps. An elderly woman, who had seen many storms in her life, stood up. What if they have a hideout nearby? We could be caught off guard. We need a reconnaissance group, Alara agreed. Jackson and I can go, but we need more people willing to take the risk. Volunteers began to step forward, and soon the group was organizing. The atmosphere was charged with adrenaline and determination, and Alara knew she was beginning to form not just an army, but a family united by a common goal. As they discussed the details of the plan, a gentle breeze entered through the opening of the temple, as if the ocean itself were listening to their words and encouraging them. Alara felt a connection to her ancestors, a reminder that she was not alone on this journey. It was time to act, and together they could face any challenge that lay ahead. As the gentle sea breeze swayed the palm trees above, Alara felt restless. The atmosphere in the submerged temple of Atlantis was thick with palpable tension. She and her allies were gathered in a circle, surrounded by ancient artifacts and symbols representing the heritage of their city. Among them was Marcus, a longtime friend whose presence had always brought a sense of comfort, but now seemed to carry a different weight. Alara looked into Marcus's eyes, trying to read his intentions. We are about to accomplish something grand. We need all of us together, without secrets, she said, her voice firm, but her gaze cautious. Marcus smiled, but his eyes carried a shadow. Of course, Alara. We are all here for the same objective, right? To protect Atlantis. The young priestess felt a chill run down her spine. Those words sounded empty, like a distant echo. She remembered the conversation she had with the Lassin, where the Guardian warned her about the possibility of betrayal within her circle. We need to trust each other, Alara repeated, almost like a mantra. As they discussed the details of the ritual, Marcus's presence felt increasingly unsettling. He had knowledge about the artifacts, but the way he spoke about them seemed more like a desire for power than a quest for protection. Alara decided to confront him. Marcus, you're acting strangely. What is really going on? Do you have any doubts about what we're doing? He hesitated for a moment, as if the question had caught him off guard. Alara, don't be ridiculous. I am your friend. I want to help. Then tell me, what would you do if these artifacts fell into the wrong hands? The priestess crossed her arms, her challenging gaze fixed on Marcus. His expression changed, and the coldness in his voice made her shiver. I would do whatever it takes to ensure they don't fall into the wrong hands. You know many would be willing to do anything for power. The tension in the air was thick, and Alara found herself in a dilemma. Are you suggesting that I am not capable of protecting the city? That I am not worthy of leading this ritual? Her voice rose, reflecting the indignation she felt. I'm not saying that, but you need to understand that not everyone has the same pure intentions as you. Some may want to use the artifacts to gain control over Atlantis. Frustration grew in Marcus's voice, and Alara realized there was something deeper in his rhetoric. How do you know this, Marcus? She decided to press him, as the unease consumed her. You are in contact with the treasure hunters, aren't you? He averted his gaze, and the silent confirmation felt like a blow. Alara, I just wanted to ensure our people wouldn't suffer anymore. The city needs a strong leader, and a strong leader does not betray their friends. She interrupted, the hurt evident in her voice. You don't understand. If I have the artifacts, I can guarantee enough power to what, Marcus? To become what you've always wanted to be? A tyrant? The shock in her voice was undeniable. I never thought you were capable of this. He smiled, but it was a grim smile. You don't know what is truly at stake. The forces we are facing are more powerful than you imagine. And you think aligning with them is the answer? Elara felt the betrayal like a sharp blade in her heart. You are the last person I expected to join them. The tension between them was almost palpable. Marcus, realizing he had crossed a line, tried to backtrack. Elara, I don't want this to end like this. We can work together. I just wanted power, like all of us. She took a deep breath, trying to contain her anger and sadness. If you cannot see the error in your words, then I can no longer trust you. This ritual is not about power. It is about protecting our home. With a determined look, Elara turned to her allies. We need to move forward. No matter what happens, I will perform this ritual. For the good of Atlantis, not for my own benefit or for anyone else's. And as Marcus stepped away, a mix of anger and disillusionment hung over the group. Elara knew that the journey was far from over, but the betrayal of a friend had made her more resolute than ever. She would not be shaken, not when the future of her city was at stake. The day of the ritual dawned shrouded in a dense and mysterious fog, which seemed to drag like a cloak over the tranquil waters of Atlantis. Elara, with her heart racing, prepared to face the dark force that had long been approaching. The submerged temple, where echoes of ancestral prayers still resonated, was filled with a palpable energy, a mix of expectation and fear. She could feel that something very ancient and powerful was about to be revealed. Talassen, the guardian of secrets, stood by her side, his scales shining under the dim light filtering through the openings of the temple. He looked deeply into Elara's eyes, as if trying to convey all the wisdom he had accumulated over centuries. Elara, remember that true strength lies in your connection with the elements and your people. This ritual is not just a fight against what is to come, it is a celebration of what it means to be Atlantean. I know, Talassen. But what if we fail? What if the spirit of the king destroys us? The unease in Elara's voice was evident even as she tried to hide it. You are not alone. The lineage of priestesses that runs through your veins is more powerful than you can imagine. Trust your intuition and the voices of the past. They will be with you, Talassen replied, his voice serene as the gentle current of the sea. When the ritual began, the water around them began to vibrate, and a chill ran down Elara's spine. The ancestral chants, sung by her and her allies, echoed in the depths, creating a bond with the ocean's energy. But then, like thunder breaking the calm, the dark force manifested. A frigid wind swept through the temple, and the waters began to churn, forming a whirlpool. It was as if the ocean itself was in fury. From the center of the maelstrom, an imposing figure emerged, a vengeful spirit, cloaked in shadows and rage, with eyes that shone like stars in a night sky. His countenance was that of an Atlantean king, lost in his own pain and resentment. Who dares to disturb my rest? The spirit's voice echoed, reverberating against the walls of the temple. I am the vengeance of Atlantis, and nothing will stop my return. Elara, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, lifted her head. We have come in search of peace, not conflict. Your power does not need to be used for destruction. Peace? The spirit laughed, a bitter sound that seemed to cut through the water. Peace was stolen from me, and now I bring destruction as a response. You mortals will never understand the pain we carry. Talassen, sensing the gravity of the situation, intervened. Spirit, your pain is understandable, but revenge will not bring back what was lost. What you truly desire is release from your suffering. Release? I am the king. My suffering is the suffering of Atlantis. The spirit screamed, his form twisting in fury. But amid the turmoil, something unexpected happened. Talassen began to transform before Elara's eyes. The waters around him glowed intensely, and his scaly body contorted, revealing a deep connection with the spirit. I am a part of you, and you are a part of me, Talassen said, his voice now echoing with ancestral wisdom. The hatred you feel is an echo of what happened to our city. But true strength comes from love and sacrifice. I offer myself to help you. Talassen, no! You can't do this. Elara shouted, but it was too late. The guardian launched himself toward the spirit, merging their energies. A blinding light illuminated the temple, and the waters began to swirl around them as if the ocean itself was responding to the sacrifice. Thalassen, no! Despair was evident in Alara's voice as she watched the scene unfold. The spirit hesitated, its fury beginning to dissipate as Thalassen's memories of love and sacrifice filled the space between them. "You are not alone," he whispered, as his essence fused with the spirit, creating a wave of light that illuminated the depths of the ocean. Alara, with tears in her eyes, felt a surge of determination and sadness. Thalassen had sacrificed everything to protect her, and now she was alone, enveloped in an unknown energy, but her resolve was growing. It was time to face what was to come, and she could not fail. The darkness of the ocean's depths enveloped Alara like a heavy cloak, but the light emanating from her heart pulsed intensely, challenging the shadow that approached. The vengeful spirit of the Atlantean king, an imposing and terrifying figure, rose before her, its indistinct forms dancing with hostile energy. The atmosphere vibrated with the tension between the two, as if the sea itself were holding its breath. You are the priestess who dares to invoke the ancestral powers?" The spirit's voice resonated like thunder, reverberating through the walls of the underwater cavern. Its presence was oppressive, and Alara felt her body tremble slightly under the weight of its anger. "I am Alara, guardian of Atlantis, and I did not come here to challenge you, but to understand your pain," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear that enveloped her. The spirit, cloaked in shadows, seemed to hesitate for a brief moment, as if the sincerity in the young priestess's words resonated somewhere deep within him. "Understand? You cannot comprehend what it is to lose everything," the king shouted, his figure twisting in a whirlwind of emotions. "The city I loved, the life I had, all was taken from me. And now you dare to stand between me and my vengeance?" Alara, realizing that the spirit's anger was fueled by deep resentment, decided that compassion might be her best weapon. "I am not your enemy," she said, taking a step forward. "I am the voice of those who still love Atlantis, and I want to hear your story. What happened that made you become this way?" The spirit hesitated, its dark eyes shining with tragic light. "It was betrayal. My own people abandoned me, and the gods turned against me. I was punished for trying to protect those I loved. They forgot me, and now I wish for them to feel the same pain." "But pain does not bring peace," Alara insisted, her heart racing as she struggled to connect with him emotionally. "Revenge only perpetuates more pain. What do you truly desire? Revenge or freedom?" The spirit seemed to waver, and Alara saw a flicker of hope ignite in its eyes. I wish for them to feel what I felt. To know the loss that consumed me." "Then listen to me," Alara said, her voice soft yet firm. "Let me show you the love that still exists in Atlantis. Let me share the memories of joy and sacrifice that shaped our city. Love never disappeared, even amidst the pain." She closed her eyes, focusing on the vibrant memories of the city. The laughter of children playing in the clear waters, the celebrations under the starlight, the unity of humans and sea beings living in harmony. In her mind, she summoned images of her grandmother, a priestess who had dedicated her life to protecting Atlantis. "See," Alara exclaimed, opening her eyes and turning to the spirit. "See what still exists. The love you gave and received. The bonds that never broke, even after your departure." The spirit, tormented, began to hesitate. The memories of love and sacrifice that Alara evoked started to touch its hardened heart. The shadow on its face began to slowly dissipate, revealing a countenance of deep sadness. "But I don't know if I can let this go." "You have the power to choose," Alara whispered. "Choose peace, choose to free yourself from your suffering. Do not let anger define who you are. Let love and light return to your heart." As the battle intensified in its mind, the spirit struggled against the torrent of emotions that Alara had awakened. The internal struggle manifested in its form, as if the storm within it was about to explode. With her heart racing, Alara realized that this battle was not just against the spirit, but also a fight for her own soul, for her city, and for the connection she had with the ocean and her ancestors. "I am not just a priestess," Alara asserted, feeling the strength grow within her. I am the voice of Atlantis. And if you allow it, I can help you find your way back to the light. Elara felt the tension in the deep waters of the ocean. The vengeful spirit of the Atlantean king rose before her, a specter shrouded in shadows and memories of a glorious past, now corrupted by resentment. As the battle intensified, Elara focused, remembering the stories the Lassan had shared. The loss of her friend drove her to fight, but not with anger, it was compassion she sought. You do not need to continue on this path of destruction. Elara shouted, her words echoing through the currents. Atlantis has suffered enough. We are not your enemies, we are your children. The spirit paused, its empty gaze reflecting deep pain. You, the living, do not know true pain. I lost everything. My kingdom, my family. Only revenge remains to me. Elara, realizing that the spirit's anger was fueled by its own memories, decided to open herself. I too know loss. Pain can be devastating, but we do not have to let it consume us. Look around you. Atlantis is not just ruins, it is a place of love, of sacrifice. I am here to remind you of that. The spirit hesitated, its ethereal forms trembling as if battling an internal storm. Elara's presence, serene and firm, seemed to create fissures in the darkness that enveloped it. But before it could respond, Marcus, the old treacherous friend, emerged from the shadows, his expression hardened. You do not understand, Elara. Power is the only thing that matters, he shouted, his voice filled with desperation and ambition. Let it consume you. That is how you will become truly strong. Marcus, you cannot want this. Elara replied, her voice steady, but her heart was breaking. You are aligning yourself with the worst. This is not the way to reclaim what you lost. Do not let your own ambition lead you astray. Marcus, however, ignored her words, advancing toward the spirit with a dagger that shone brightly. I am not like you, Elara. I will not be a martyr. I will take what is rightfully mine. The spirit, drawn by Marcus's presence, turned its attention to him, a menacing glow lighting up its shadowy eyes. You, who seek power, will be consumed by it. You do not belong in this place. No! Elara screamed, realizing that the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Marcus, do not do this. You do not need to be this way. But Marcus's ambition had taken over him. He lunged toward the spirit, the dagger ready to pierce its essence. In an instant, the spirit, in its fury, turned against Marcus, its shadows writhing like snakes. Foolish mortal, it growled, its voice reverberating through the currents. You seek power, but you will find only destruction. Elara felt a chill run down her spine. No, no, no! It cannot end like this. She stepped between Marcus and the spirit, raising her hands. Spirit of Atlantis, I cannot let this happen. You do not need to continue this fight. Stop. Let him go. The spirit hesitated, a visible battle unfolding within it. Elara, feeling the connection to her heritage and the love she had for Atlantis, began to channel that energy. Remember who you were. Remember your family, your people. Do not let anger consume you. Elara's words resonated within the cavern, and the spirit stopped, confused. A glimmer of hope began to emanate from it, and the rage that surrounded it began to dissipate. The shadows around it started to fade as Elara continued to speak with compassion. I know you feel pain, but revenge will not bring you the peace you seek. Free yourself from hatred and find forgiveness. Let the happy memories of Atlantis guide you. The light surrounding the spirit began to shine, and it looked one last time at Marcus, who stood paralyzed with fear, and then, with a final sigh, allowed itself to be led by the compassion Elara had offered. After the intense battle against the vengeful spirit that threatened the peace of Atlantis, Elara emerged from the depths of the ocean, her hair floating like seaweed in the wind. The sunlight pierced the water's surface, reflecting a golden glow over the city, now restored. Around her, the inhabitants of Atlantis, still dazed, began to gather in the central square, where the great statue of Poseidon silently watched over them. She did it. She really did it, whispered the citizens as Elara approached, her her steps firm and determined. Her heart pulsed with the energy of the ocean, and despite the scars of battle, she displayed an expression of resolve and relief. When she reached the center of the square, a respectful silence enveloped the place. All eyes were fixed on her, the heroine who had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. Elara lifted her head, her eyes shining with the light of hope. "People of Atlantis," Elara began, her voice echoing among the inhabitants. "Today, we not only faced a dark force but also rediscovered our true essence. Love and compassion are more powerful than any vengeance." A murmur of approval spread through the crowd. Among the familiar faces, she spotted Jackson, who smiled at her, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "You did what no one else could, Elara," he said, stepping closer. "We must celebrate this victory." "Yes, we must," Elara replied, feeling stronger with their support. "But we must also learn from our mistakes, from the betrayal we faced. Darkness does not come just from outside, but also from within us." At that moment, the door to the square opened, and Marcus, the friend who had become a traitor, appeared. His face was marked by shame and defeat. The crowd looked at him with disdain, and murmurs of reproach began to echo. "Elara," he started, his voice trembling. I made a mistake. I should not have sought power. I was blind." "Blind? Or did you always know what you were doing?" Elara questioned, her voice carrying the weight of disappointment. "You put not only our city at risk, but also the life of everyone here. I thought I could do something great, something that would make us stronger." "I didn't know the price of power was so high," Marcus replied, his eyes downcast. "I just wanted to be someone." The crowd began to stir, and Elara felt the tension in the air. "You all saw what unchecked desire for power can cause," Elara said, turning to the citizens. "But while Marcus's betrayal is painful, we must decide how to react. Justice must be served, but with compassion." "He doesn't deserve compassion," shouted one of the inhabitants, an old fisherman who had lost much due to Marcus's ambition. "He betrayed us, Elara. And if we continue to perpetuate the cycle of hatred and vengeance?" Elara replied, seeking the gaze of everyone. "We must choose a different path. Expelling Marcus from the city is one choice, but we must allow him to learn from his mistakes. Only then can we truly heal." The murmurs in the crowd began to calm, and some started to agree with Elara. Jackson, at her side, added, "She's right. We all can make mistakes, but how we handle those mistakes defines who we are." Finally, the crowd began to disperse, and after a long moment of hesitation, Marcus lifted his gaze. "I understand. I accept what you decide. Just let me learn. Please." "Let you learn, Marcus," Elara said, with a firm yet gentle tone. "But know that trust is hard to regain. The road back will be long." With that, the townspeople gathered in a circle around Elara, who, despite the pain of being betrayed, was willing to look beyond a friend's mistake. The decision was made, justice would be served with compassion, and the city of Atlantis, now united, would begin to build a new legacy. Elara found herself alone in one of the most serene corners of the submerged temple, surrounded by the tranquil waters that now reflected the soft light penetrating from the outside world. The echo of her recent battle still resonated in her mind, but as the adrenaline faded, a new sensation began to arise, a deep connection with what had been revealed during the confrontation. The ancestral voice that had guided her here was not just a distant call, it was a part of herself, a manifestation of her essence, of her latent power. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, allowing the memories of the battle and the sacrifice of Thalassin to blend with the calming waves of the ocean. "It was you who guided me, wasn't it?" she murmured, as if speaking to the very spirit of her friend. "You were always here, even when I didn't realize." In that moment of introspection, the ancestral voice echoed once more in her mind, but now more clearly and familiarly. "Yes, Elara. I have been with you from the beginning, shaping your destiny. The strength you felt is not only mine, it is yours. You are the guardian of Atlantis, and your journey has only just begun." The words reverberated within her, like a chant awakening something dormant. The weight of responsibility and the pain of Marcus's betrayal began to dissipate, giving way to a new hope. But what about all of them? The city is fragile, and trust has been shaken. Trust is a bond that is woven over time, Alara. You have the capacity to rebuild it. Look around you, the city needs you now more than ever. The union between humans and sea beings depends on your leadership. Do not forget what you have learned. With a new determination pulsing in her heart, Alara opened her eyes and decided it was time to rise and face the future. As she emerged from contemplation, she found herself surrounded by the inhabitants of Atlantis, who were gathering to celebrate the victory and the restoration of harmony. The city vibrated with a renewed feeling, and Alara was at the center of this new world. "Heroine of Atlantis," shouted a young girl, her face lit with joy. "You saved us all." The applause and shouts of gratitude filled the space, but Alara knew that the true battle was yet to come. "Thank you, my friends," she said, raising her hands to calm the crowd. But the true victory is not just in the defeat of the vengeful spirit. It lies in the rebuilding of trust and unity among all of us. We must learn from the past and ensure that history does not repeat itself. Murmurs of agreement spread among the townspeople. Alara's expression of determination inspired courage and hope in their hearts. However, a shadow still loomed over her. "And what about Marcus?" asked one of the elders, his voice laden with concern. "He betrayed the city and the trust of all." "Yes, he made a wrong choice," Alara replied, remembering the look of despair and regret on her former friend's face. "But what he needs now is compassion. Let's confront him, but we must do so with open hearts. Forgiveness is the true strength that can restore our community." As the townspeople nodded in agreement, an iridescent glow appeared before her. The form of Thalassin began to materialize, luminous and serene. Alara felt a mix of relief and joy. "Thalassin," she exclaimed, running towards him. "You are not alone, Alara," he said, his voice soft like the waves of the sea. "I will always be by your side, even in the shadows. The true strength of Atlantis lies in your heart, and now you must lead with love and compassion." Thalassin's words echoed throughout the city, creating an even stronger bond between the inhabitants and the sea creatures. "Let's go together," Alara declared, lifting her head, "not just as humans or sea beings, but as one community. The new era of Atlantis begins now." With Thalassin's support and the renewed strength of her own essence, Alara felt ready to face any challenges that would come. She knew her journey was just beginning, but now, more than ever, she was prepared to shape the future of Atlantis with hope and love. Good night and enchanted dreams.